is being recorded.
Good evening. It is 7:02 on February 22nd. Welcome to the special meeting of Public Safety and General Government Committee. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to call roll. Heidi Alterman.
Here. Sorry, couldn't find
That's
mute.
okay. Nicole Ayers.
Present.
Josh Goldstein.
Here.
Ed Camacho. Brian Meek.
Here.
And Diana Revolus. Okay, Ed Camacho just joined us, so I want to note that for the notes and the record. We need to vote on the acceptance of the minutes from our January 26th meeting. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Josh. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to the minutes from that meeting?
I think there may be a spelling mistake in there. I think Nicole's name may be spelled incorrectly.
All right.
I know I saw it when I looked at the agenda and I've now had it up and now it's gone.
Bad on me for not noticing that.
No, hold on. I know I saw it. Yeah, it's the third page. It's this page under discussion, beginning of the second paragraph.
Okay, great. So we need to update Nicole's name to be spelled correctly. Any other changes or corrections?
Madam Chair, can you just spell it? Because they probably thought it was spelled correctly. For the
It's funny, it's spelled correctly in other parts of the
It
minutes.
is. I was going to say, I didn't notice it. It is Nicole, and her last name is Ayers. No E. Okay. Any other corrections or changes? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Meek abstains. Any nays? I lost my wording there for a minute. Okay, that is that. Moving on to public participation. Do we have anybody here who would like to participate from the public?
We do not.
I don't see anybody. Thank you so much. Okay, so we will close public participation. We have no new business, but before we go on to our discussion items, I wanted to turn the floor over to Chief Gatto to say a few words about firefighter Craig Saris, who we lost recently. So Chief Gatto, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a short bio about firefighter Craig Saris. He was hired on December 10, 1997. He served the city of Norwalk for 25 years. He passed away on February 6th of this year after a 4-year battle with cancer. He was 52 years old. And during his 4 years that he was fighting cancer, every 2 days after treatment, he would come back to work. And he would do that over and over again until he could not come back to work. His passing is classified as an occupational line of duty death based on cancer illness as defined by the International Association of Firefighters. He is survived by his wife, Amy, and their 2 children. Craig received 2 fire department commendations throughout his career. One in 2005, where he received a unit citation when he and his fellow firefighters from Engine 3 dove into the Norwalk River to attempt to rescue victims trapped in a vehicle that had left the road and become submerged. And in 2011, he received a unit citation for rescuing a man who had become unconscious from carbon monoxide poisoning in his home. Him and his crew, they went down to the basement and they found the victim in the basement and carried him out to safety. That was because the guy was running a generator down his basement. So to describe Craig would be to say he was an overall good guy. He liked to joke around in the firehouse like we all do every once in a while. When he got married later on in life and when he had kids, that's all he talked about was his kids. Very proud of his kids. Look at this video that I took and things like that. So one thing I have to say, one very good comment that we all say to each other is like, he's a good fireman. To call somebody and say he's a good fireman means that this guy would do anything to help you at a fire, even around a firehouse and things like that, help you out off duty. And he was definitely a good firefighter. He was strong as an ox, and he's going to be missed for sure. So that's Craig in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Chief Gatto. I'm sorry for the family and for the department's loss. I want to take a moment to just have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. So on that note, we are going to move on to our agenda items. The first agenda item on discussion is continuation of the January presentations related to the budget priorities. I thought we would start with fire because we wanted to talk about the capital request since we didn't get to talk about that in January. So again, I'll turn it over to you, Chief Gatto, and then we'll follow that with Police Chief Walsh talking about anything relating to the budget, actually, because this is sort of our last time before the council votes on it to discuss any items.
Okay, thank you. So the capital budget is put together by different projects and priority. So I'm going to start with my number one priority and go all the way down to we have 8 different projects. So we put in $454,000 to replace our self-contained breathing apparatus, face piece, and regulators. So what those are is the face mask and regulator that you see guys wear with a tank on their back so that they could breathe going into a fire or any IDLH atmosphere. A few years ago, we had purchased face pieces when the standard was changed. NFPA changed the standard. And what happened was, I think they were all rushed into production to meet the standard. And we're finding now that the face pieces around where the regulator fits in is beginning to crack. And some of the face pieces have failed. And based on obviously the need to have no leaks in your mask, I think that's a very important priority. And I put that as my first project. And there was actually Scott, who's the manufacturer, put out a safety notice alerting us of the problems. So we're just going to replace all the regulators with a new and improved high temperature face mask that supposedly this will not happen. So that's the first one. Do you want me to stop and ask and answer questions?
No, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand though, as the chief is going through the capital request, okay? Does anybody have questions on that first part? Okay, go ahead, chief.
Okay, the second one is what we put down as the OSHA mandated turnout gear replacement. So every firefighter has, sorry about that. Every firefighter has 2 sets of what we call turnout gear, which is their coat and pants. In case they have, after a fire, we require everybody to wash their gear because that's part of our cancer preventative program. And while they're washing their gear, they have another set that they could use in case there's another call. OSHA, as you might know, came around to a few firehouses in different departments across the city. And they were looking at turnout gear very, very closely, and we got violated for having some turnout gear over 10 years old. Now, what does that mean? That means that for us, in the past, as a second set of gear, because we have our gear tested every year, it still would meet and pass the requirements to be able to keep in service, but OSHA has now adopted a standard where no turnout gear can be worn after 10 years. So everything on the rack by next month has to be removed, and they can't be worn. So we went out and did a complete inventory of everybody's gear, and $200,000 would have to replace all that second gear to comply with the OSHA requirement. And then moving forward, every year we would purchase about 20, 25 sets of gear just to keep up with the rotation. The third item, and the big item, money-wise, is Station 4 addition and renovation. So we meaning the fire department, we are planning to relocate a truck company into the Westport Avenue firehouse. Currently, that firehouse is one engine with 4 firefighters. It is our third busiest firehouse. And when we, so this Station 4 is an addition to be able to house 4 more people and to remodel, add another office and the bathroom, et cetera, of the existing building to allow for a truck company to go up there. So why do we want to do that? Station 2, which is our headquarters, Station 1, which is Broad River, and Station 4, which is Westport Avenue, the 3 busiest stations, would all have minimum of 8 firefighters on duty. So when the Westport Avenue Station Engine 4 is out on a call, they're not waiting for somebody to come from across town to either help them out or to respond to another medical call. It would help with the response times in that area. If that part of town has a fire, they'll respond with 8 people instead of 4 people and be able to begin extinguishment very quickly. That station was built in 1967, has not had any remodeling done except for the boiler was replaced. So I think this is a good time to do the addition, do the renovation, move the truck company over there. And it'll be safer for our guys, and it'll be much better for the community. Our call volume is going up every year. As indicated by last year, we were up over 1,437 calls across the city, but that particular station, which is Engine 4, again, they were up 245 calls to 1,840. So every time they were out and there was another call, somebody from another part of town would have to come to cover it. So that's what we're pushing for that. Questions?
Chief Gatto, what was the price on the last item, the remodeling and addition of?
Okay,
Station 4?
so last year we had, we put in for $15,000 to get some conceptual drawings made.
Mhm.
And this year we hired an architect, and we have the drawings in place. We have an estimate of $2,500,000, which we're told is on the high side, and better to be high than it is to be low and ask for more money later. Those are all based on architectural recommendations.
Great. Are there any other questions about any of these 3 items? They're 3 big items, but I think they're important. Anything else, Chief Gatto, before we hand it
Okay.
over to Chief Walsh?
I have another 5 more.
That's right. I forgot. We have a very long list for capital with you this year.
We do. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry.
right,
I
so-
apologize. I don't know what I was thinking.
If
I
it's
want to
better
note,
for you.
just for the minutes that at 7:10, Diana Revolus joined the meeting as well, before you move on. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next one is a rescue truck, which is apparatus replacement. So we have our frontline apparatus of 10 to 12 year replacement schedule. And the rescue truck is kind of a unique vehicle because it's basically a toolbox on wheels. It carries all kinds of extrication equipment. For think of any type of rescue call, high angle, confined space, etc., motor vehicle accidents, extrications, all that equipment is on there. The truck that we have now is a 2008 rescue truck, and we do have a 1993 that is a reserve. Well, the problem is when the truck we have in service now has to come out for repair, that 93 is very, very unreliable. And there's sometimes where we don't even have a rescue truck in service because the replacement, the spare is just not roadworthy. So we would replace the 2008 with a new rescue truck, and the 2008 would become the spare. And that would also allow that truck to last longer in the fleet. The next item is a shift commander car, which we call Car 2, which is our deputy chief, which is the shift commander. So he responds to all motor vehicle accidents, all multi-unit assignments, structure fires, etc. It's $150,000 to replace the 2009 command vehicle. And we're in the process of purchasing new software, command software, which enables this command car to actually be more of a command vehicle to monitor all the firefighters inside the buildings, their how much air they have in their tanks, their locations. We could announce like to evacuate, etc. So it's going to be equipped with more monitors and command boards. It'll strictly be more of a like the chief's aide would be more of an aide as opposed to just like teaming up with another crew. He'll be actually stick with the deputy chief there. The next one, we're planning on doing a bathroom renovation for Meadow Street, which is Station 5. We want to right now it's just a big gang room with some toilets and urinals and an open shower. We want to close all that in for more privacy and accommodate all of our female members as well. We're looking to replace 2 of the fire marshal vehicles, our fire inspector vehicles. 2 of them are 2012. We're no longer looking to buy like a Ford Escape, which is what they are now. We're looking to buy the small version of the Ford Ranger pickup truck, where we can separate the fire inspector's tools and gear when they are contaminated, to keep all their gear away from the inside of the cab. So we have $75,000 for that project. The last one is just a building repairs, what I call building repair account for $35,000 to cover maintenance on 5 stations and 1 maintenance garage, just minor or moderate repairs. That's it. We did have a electrical upgrade that OSHA wanted us to do in the apparatus maintenance building, but we are going to partner with South Norfolk Electric, and they're going to reduce the installation by half, and then we're going to pay for the balance over a 1-year period every month. Because we're changing to LED lights as opposed to the halide lights. The first year we'll be saving $12,908. And the second year we'll be saving $25,000 in electricity. But that we put in for 42,000, but we will not be using that money this year. So that's going to be really zero. That's it.
That's all.
That's it for now.
Okay, those are all really important things. And I know we had talked previously about, you know, the list on the capital side. And saving money is always good too. So I appreciate you pointing that savings out to us. Does anybody have any questions for Chief Gatto?
Station 5 is going under a lot of roof repair too, right?
Yes, we were awarded the balance of money to replace the roof. They're ready to go. The contracts are signed, just waiting for a little better, warmer weather.
Yeah.
And that will be replaced, right?
I know there were some questions. I remember there were some questions that came up when the Station 5 proposal for the roof came up about sort of, are there other things, other infrastructure related things in other stations that we may need to look at as capital, you know, projects down the road? I'm wondering what I mean, I realize this is a big list for this year, but are there future improvements to other fire stations that are going to need to happen in the coming years? What do you see coming next here?
Well, I would really hope that we can get the Station 4 project underway, and that would take care of that building. Station 3, which is on Van Zandt Street, is owned by the 3rd Taxing District.
Right.
That building is in need of a brand new apparatus floor because the new fire engines that we're going to purchase are heavier than the ones we have now. They're aware of it. They're going to pay for the project. So that's a big help. Broad River Station, which is on New Canaan Avenue, we just did a very large remodel inside, except we did not touch the apparatus floor. So what has to be done, 2 things have to be done in that building still. All the windows are the single pane, like you open it from the bottom and you pull the window in towards you. So I think all the windows need to be updated. And there's a exterior wall that faces the field where the earth is undermining from under the building. So we think that some of the concrete floor has to be jackhammered out and then a new floor has to be laid. We didn't do that this year because of all this other projects that we're trying to get moving. That's really the 3 main, I think, items going forward in the next few years that need to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Gatto? All right. I feel like that was pretty easy. All right, turning it over to Chief Walsh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Gatto.
Thank you.
We're going to turn it over to Chief Walsh for the police. I know we had gotten started talking about the budget last month. Is there anything you want to give us an update on, or anything budgetary wise that you'd like to bring us up to speed on or have us advocate for that maybe isn't in the recommendation?
Sure, thank you. Good evening. Our official request originally was for $965,000 for capital, which originally included 10 police cars, a new prisoner van, and 2 electric vehicles, and replacement of 2 outboard engines. That was our original request. February 1st, we got the CFO's recommendations. It was cut to $750 for 2024. So more or less the electric cars were cut for the administrative. And I'm still hoping to buy for 2024 fiscal year, 8 to 10 more police cars and a new prisoner van to replace the prisoner van, which has we upgraded the seatbelts. I spoke about it last time, but after the New Haven incident, we would like to buy a new prisoner van, which has rows versus the back loading. So we have full 3-point restraints for the prisoners and the officers who ride and transport the prisoners to court. The outboard engines were recommended for next year's fiscal budget. So they're still on the plan. So right now for capital, I think it's a lot more simple than fire department. So right now we're in pretty good shape.
Simple is good.
And do you want me to just roll right into the operating budget?
Yeah, go ahead. Unless anybody has any questions on the capital side. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, on the operating budget, we're right at a 3.5 increase. Overall increase is $1.6 million. We're at $28.4 million. Some of the big ticket items which directed that increase are the crossing guards. One of the items that was recommended by the efficiency study was privatizing the school crossing guards. Currently, our budget is at about $240,000 to $245,000 to cover approximately 19 intersections in the afternoon and the morning. But that does not include all the variables when we have to pay overtime to the officers because we have frequent absenteeism from the school crossing guards, because with the bad weather, like on a day like this, they'll have 3 or 4 call out because they don't want to stand out there in the rain for $15 an hour. So we always have to cover all those overtime costs with officers at the beginning and ending of shifts, and that drives up the cost. So right now we do have we went through the RFP process last year. We do have a good company. They're at $386,000. And that is a complete turnkey company. They're self-managed. And what they do is they provide all the school crossing guards. They provide supervision. They provide all the training. They provide all the equipment, their uniforms. They have the replacements when their employees call out sick. So we'll be able to completely outsource the school crossing detail. And I think it'll be a whole lot more efficient operationally. And I think it's a great idea. And right now it's still in the recommended budget and still moving forward. The second item that's driving up the budget is $237,000 for the behavioral health unit. That is with the recovery program. That is 2 full-time clinicians embedded in the police department that work through our community services division. And our overall goal is to provide behavioral health to a very wide services, to victim services, to emotionally disturbed, to juveniles, to victims of all crime. And they're averaging anywhere between 38 to 45 cases a month already. We started in October. So far, they've been very successful. And our overall goal of that program is to lessen police intervention when people are in crisis. And it's a pilot program that started in Stanford, and they're very successful. They already have a 30 to 40% reduction in calls for service for police, because what they're doing is the behavioral health unit is redirecting them to clinicians and other sources, so they don't have to dial 911 when they're in crisis, which is it's a great alternative. The other big ticket item that's driving it up is the body cams, dash cams, and tasers at $460,000. As we are required by state law to have body cams and dash cams now, we signed a 5-year contract with evidence.com to move forward for replacement of all the body cams and to keep the dash cam program running, and our tasers, what we call the electronic weapon. They need replacement in a couple of years. They're 5 to 6 years old, and they have more modern, more advanced models. So that price is $460,000. We're also, the other item is overtime for special events. We've been ever since in the past few years, a lot of the intelligence that's been driven from the federal government is to protect soft targets in regards to parades, fairs, festivals, public gatherings such as high school graduations, and things like that. So our overtime budget for events like that has never covered. So we're requesting an additional $120,000 in what we label emergency services unit overtime. And it's been a successful program. We've been carrying that out of the operational budget for a few years. But I know Norwalk Public Schools, all the events that we do cover, it is a great asset to be out there considering what's going on nationwide with soft targets and public events. Is adding that extra layer of security is a beneficial thing. And patrol salary, last year we were at 9.6 million. This year it's going up to 10.6. That's just through normal collective bargaining raises and other incentives such as tuition reimbursement, shift differentials, which all get driven up by the collective bargaining agreement. So we're at $1.6 million, but we're at the recommended 3.5. So far, everything looks pretty good with the operating budget.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions about capital or operating from Chief Walsh?
I just think it's worth highlighting the behavioral health thing. Those appointments are obviously something that are very important to us, especially considering and this is really due to council member McMurr's leadership, used American Rescue Plan funding to fund, I think, one of these positions through when. Because I just to give everyone a sense of when the ARPA dollars for this runs out and what, Chief Walsh, you're asking for going forward.
Yes, so this will be the operational budget starting July 1st. The current contract expires the end of September.
Okay.
The one that initially brought in the.
Yeah, so to answer your question a little bit further, Josh, we had to bring it up in this year's budget, even though we don't have a full slate of data yet, because the ARPA money, to your point, is going to run out before next year's budget is discussed. So that's
right.
Adding it.
Right, and I wanted to get in front of the issue of people saying, wait a minute, didn't we put ARPA money towards this? How long?
Totally.
And the reason you're bringing, and I assume, I guess, and I realize there isn't a whole lot of data yet, but if I recall what you just said a few minutes ago, that we're already getting fewer calls due to this program. I mean, is that fair to say? Like, what have we learned so far having a clinician in place for a few months now?
Stanford Police, which is the pilot program, and we're mimicking their program with
right.
recovery. They're already seeing a 30 to 40% drop. In our program, we've been active since about November 1st, mid-October.
Okay.
What we're seeing already is a lot of, shall I say, the chronic repeating calls with the same people are slowing down. We always had probably 6 to 12, always chronic. So we're finding them alternatives instead of going to the police, dealing with their clinicians. And we're bringing attention through a whole cadre of community health services that Sergeant Galino has arranged and finding all these people resources to go to so they don't have to dial 911 when they're in crisis. And also not only that, providing their families support, because some of these families are at wit's end and they don't know what to do. So right. We're providing them a lot of support and a lot of resources that they can go to. And but we already have, we had a case today, a case that flared up last week. We had another case as I was leaving, I was monitoring via radio, and Sergeant Galino and the recovery worker intervened, and they were able to get the parents involved. They involved the juvenile and autistic, and they were able to bring it to a successful conclusion. We had an incident last week where he got a little violent and he sort of barricaded himself, and today it worked out well.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, and I think that it speaks to how important programs like this are, and I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they continue.
I agree, and I think that as we get more data after we're in, 6 months to a year into this program, I'll definitely have Chief Walsh, Sergeant Galino come in and talk about, the data that we're seeing, so we can continue to advocate for this. Councilmember Alterman.
Thank you. I just had a question. It's not a budget question, but about the body-worn cameras. Does Norwalk Police Force have a formal policy? And if it does, could you just share it? I just was curious.
Oh, we have a vast directive. One of our directives is under Chapter 3 It's probably 8 pages long. It mimics the state policy on use of body cam. I could provide that directive to you. I don't have it with me right now. I could.
Oh, no, sure. You can email it to me at any later point. This was just something I was curious about and wanted to.
And
follow
plus,
up
there's a
on.
link on our website where you can access the Norwalk Police directives.
Okay.
So you can see it's under Chapter 3, and it is consistent with CALIA's standard industry for law enforcement, and it is consistent with state of Connecticut and post standards.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Walsh, I think you had said there were 2 full-time behavioral health positions in the operating budget. Is that an increase? Because I think we currently have 1.5.
For the proposed
Yeah.
operating budget for 2024, yes. Right now, we have
Great.
enough funds. We actually were able to incorporate a part-time
Yes,
person.
that's
So right
great.
now, we have a full 8-hour, and then we have a full hour, and she splits her time between Norwalk and Stanford. So she does the afternoon. So we have some afternoon coverage. And Alex
Fantastic.
covers mostly the early morning and daytime with Sergeant Galena.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that that is moving in the right direction and that it's helping not only our community members, but also the force as well. Any other questions regarding capital or operating budget for Chief Walsh? Okay. So our last item on the agenda is another discussion item. We just felt it would be important to sort of touch base after any significant incident involving police anywhere, to touch on what happened in Memphis with Tyree Nichols, and sort of have Chief Walsh come and talk to us about how we're preventing something like that from happening here in Norwalk, and what measures we are taking in order to keep everyone safe here. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Walsh, and thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this.
Thank you. The Tyree Nichols tragedy forced law enforcement as a whole to look within themselves once again. In America, in Norwalk, we're very progressive in our training and things like that. First off, our recruitment and retention of personnel is vital to us. Currently, we're at 181 sworn, so we're at full authorized strength. So I would say the morale and the culture of the police department is improving. At one point 2 years ago, we were down to almost 160 officers. So right now, with fresh manpower in the building, fresh training going on, we have adequate manpower on the street. We have adequate supervision. We always deploy a full cadre of supervisors on the road. We never fall below supervisory staffing recommendations. So we're always at staffing levels. That'd probably be the number one is good recruitment and good retention, and probably taking care of and addressing issues on an accountability basis on a day-to-day. A lot of communications with the supervisors. That's more or less an overarching thing to improve culture and morale in the police and in any organization. I think is that if you have good staffing and good morale and good attitudes, that reflects on how they conduct their jobs. Like I said, we have adequate supervision. We always run at a minimum of 3 supervisors on the road at one time. Each platoon is commanded by a lieutenant with 5 sergeants with varying squads and days off. There's always adequate supervision on the road. In regards to situations like the Tyree Nichols, we have a CALIA directive. Whenever an officer engages in a foot pursuit or a vehicular pursuit, as in such the foot pursuit and the vehicular pursuit, which occurred in the Tyree Nichols case, there's mandated supervisor intervention. A supervisor must immediately determine if there's an officer out on foot chasing somebody or in a car chasing somebody. The supervisor must intervene immediately to ask what's going on, where are you, what units are there, and the supervisor is mandated to begin responding to that scene to manage that scenario to make sure it successfully and safely ends for all of them. That's in our CALIA directives involving foot pursuit and vehicular pursuits that they're mandated to respond. We also have a directive 11.0, duty to intervene. Each officer has been trained, and after the Tyree Nichols incident, we also published via Power DMS, which is our system where we publish all training manuals to all our officers via emails. Agency personnel duty to intervene and report. Any personnel who witnesses and or has knowledge of the use of force by another officer, agency, employee, or public safety associate that is inappropriate, unnecessary, unreasonable, or excessive, in violation of departmental directive or otherwise in violation of state and federal statutes, and has the opportunity to intervene, must do so. Personnel shall render medical aid if needed as soon as possible. Personnel shall report the incident to the supervisor or division commander and submit a written incident report as soon as practicable. Retaliation against personnel intervene against excessive use of force, report misconduct, cooperates in an internal investigation is prohibited. Personnel who are off duty and become involved in any use of force situation must report the circumstances to an on-duty supervisor or division commander as soon as the situation is stabilized. So that is a directive that we crafted within the past few years. And after the Tyree Nichols, we republished it to every employee within the building as a refresher for their training and their knowledge. And it was well received among the supervisors at staff meetings. It was discussed. So there's a lot of informal messaging going on, a lot of communication going on between all divisions in regards to duty intervene and supervision. Plus our training is very progressive. We are in the middle of ICAT training, which stands for Integrating Communications and Tactics. I think we've already gotten close to 90 officers. Our goal is to train the whole police department. So we're training at least 30 to 35 at a time. It is a program designed by Police Executive Research Forum. It begins at the dispatch level and goes all the way through the responding officer, where it is a de-escalation method of crisis intervention without using hands-on tactics through communications. And tactics is your last scenario. You should be always communicating, always de-escalating prior to the scene. So our training has been very progressive, especially Chief Kahalik with Kalia has set the footprint moving forward, and we're continuing it, always updating and evaluating our Kalia standards and our use of force reporting. Every single officer that uses a use of force in the Norwalk Police Department has to do a use of force report. That use of force report gets reviewed by 4 levels of supervision: his sergeant, his lieutenant, deputy chief of operations, and myself. When we review a use of force, we read the reports, we review the body cam on each incident, and myself and Deputy Chief Blake, we go over it and review it, and then we record it on a spreadsheet. So all our use of forces is recorded on a spreadsheet. We also have an IA Pro, which we record as a secondary spreadsheet, and what it does is it pulls data, and it's like an early warning system, and we load a lot of information in there in regards to like car accidents, officer injuries, use of force, sick time, and things like that. So it's an early warning system that we use, and it pulls data and it gives us indicators if they start to see things. Our use of force, right now we're in the process of doing last year's use of force review. We're mandated to do a full use of force review from 2022. I think we had 140 uses of force, or approximately 138 to 140 uses of force in 2021. In 2022, it's down to 113. Historically, in the past 3 or 4 years, we have seen a reduction in the use of force utilized by Norwalk Police Department, and it is going down over the past 4 years through more progressive training, more communication, de-escalation, crisis intervention, and programs like that.
Very thorough. Thank you. Councilmember Goldstein.
All right, excuse me, just taking myself off mute. That was very comprehensive and very helpful. One of the biggest sort of stories that came to light out of the Tyree Nichols tragedy, and one of the not through lines, but one of the sort of things that came under clear criticism was the unit which responded to the call. It was called the Scorpion Unit. I want to get a sense of, first of all, because this is a public meeting and public could hear this. First of all, does the Norwalk Police Department have any unit like this? But also, why units like this don't work and aren't a good idea? If you could speak to that, that would be very helpful.
Law enforcement, the history of law enforcement has always had specialized units like that, and I would say that it would go down to the culture of leadership and management. I think units like that can be effective. I was in narcotics for 6 years, and we had the strategic narcotics enforcement team.
Mhm.
They were well supervised by a sergeant, and it wasn't a Scorpion. You know, they worked with us in regards to the long-term investigation, so it was like a hybrid unit. But they were more or less the uniform presence of the narcotic investigations and special services investigations. So any unit, I really can't comment on what occurred in regards to within the Scorpion unit in Memphis or their management, but there have been effective units within law enforcement historically, and then there also has been units that have not been supervised and tragedies like this occur. So I think it comes down to any organization, any team, any group, that it comes down to the individual culture and the organization management and supervision and transparency within there. And they are part of the greater organization. They don't work outside the rules of the organization, and that they have to be well supervised and managed.
So I think that actually brings up a really interesting point, which is that it's not necessarily the fact that a unit existed, it's that the unit or units within a police department aren't made to feel that they're above any other unit, and that there's accountability and rigorous supervision for any unit that exists in a police department. I mean, obviously I'm not a police officer, but I guess my question to you is, you know, what you take from the Tyre Nichols incident, sort of looking at a unit like this and saying, okay, you know, the sense I'm getting from what you're saying tonight is there were clearly cultural deficiencies that the Norwalk Police Department is certainly working hard to make sure don't exist here.
Yes, I agree. We work every day. We're working every day to improve the morale and the culture of the police department to that degree. And a lot of it would come down to the department's culture and management, where officers felt that they could conduct themselves in that manner without supervision, knowing that body cams were on and things like that. There wouldn't be accountability. And it's a sense of organizational atmosphere where people know that their actions are going to be viewed and they're going to be reviewed by management, and accountability applied if they're not in compliance with Norwalk Police directives and rules.
Thank
And
you,
to
Chief.
dovetail off of what you had said, Josh, and Chief Walsh and I have talked about this too, and I know he brought up the supervision. There was a really interesting article about the Tyre Nichols incident and a lack of supervision around that Scorpion unit that you mentioned in the Times this past weekend. So I'd be happy to send that around just as, you know, more information to add to the conversation. I just thought it was interesting, and that was something that I had brought up with Chief Walsh, and he assured me that, you know, the correct supervision is in place for us. So that's not an issue. Councilmember Ayers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Walsh, for being open enough to have this conversation with us. I do want to say something, and please take it with love and respect, Chief Walsh. There was a vigil for Tyre Nichols on our city green, and I was very disheartened to see only one uniformed police person there, and there was 2 cars there, but I'm assuming the other officer did not get out the car. I think it would have been important. Well, I know it is important for the community to see the police in many different ways, not only in enforcement. And the way we become a stronger community, and the way we are able to bridge gaps and get people not to feel a certain type of way, is for the police to show up in places and spaces like that. I acknowledge that could have been an uncomfortable place because of the whole situation, but I couldn't be true to myself and my community if I did not share my concern with you, Chief Walsh, that there were not more police there to participate in the vigil for Tyre Nichols. In saying
If
that,
I may respond to that one
sure,
point, Councilman.
absolutely,
We got about I received 90 minutes notice on that.
okay.
And just due to my personal schedule, I received a text message with 90 minutes notice, and I had as we all are busy as individuals and within the police department and the organization and personal lives. 90 minutes notice, and we scrambled to find personnel from community services and community policing just to provide a presence. I do see the importance of community outreach at times like this. I completely agree. But then there's everyday logistics and organization and planning that, and I had communicated that to the mayor. I said, Mayor, I said, I don't have time. So the mayor really was informed that we didn't have time to show up, but I agreed to all your points. It was merely it wasn't a slight of any community member, but just on 90 minutes to 2 hours notice, sometimes you just personally can't make it work.
And Chief, that's fair. That's fair. But I could not be who I am if I did not bring my concern to you.
Understood. Thank you.
Absolutely. Moving on from that point, I listened to your presentation and you emphasized a lot about procedures that are already in place, and not critiquing Memphis because I don't know their ins and outs, never lived there, have always been a happy resident of Norwalk. Procedures are good and great, but they are limited based on the people who are left to administer those procedures. And as a person of color, certain incidents hit me and affect me in a way that sometimes words cannot describe. And as a person who has had Norwalk Police Department as relatives, I have relatives that have served on the Norwalk Police Department. I have a great respect for the men in blue, but I also know that there's a culture that comes with wearing that badge. And if you are able to, very briefly, can you speak to the culture of trying to make sure that all community members feel that they can access the police as a resource and not that they are being policed, because that's two different things. We should be able to say, if I'm in need, if there's an emergency, I could call the police. But as a community, we don't want to feel policed. Okay, so if you can speak to that, if possible.
Of course, you know, in regards to some of the overall arcing theory of law enforcement is that the police are the people and the people are the police, said stately by Sir Robert Peel. We work hand in hand with the community, and I think a true test of a citizen satisfaction within the city of Norwalk is the feedback that we get in regards to complaints, in regards to internal complaints, in regards to citizen compliments and feedback like that. Our internal investigations, our citizens' complaints within the past 2 to 3 years, as I was Deputy Chief of Operations, are still decreasing on a monthly and a yearly basis. Through our body cam program and through our transparency and through our community outreach programs, I do believe the Norwalk Police Department has a long history and tradition of welcoming and being transparent to all the community's needs. And we continue that, and we have myself and Deputy Chief Blake and Chief Kohalik had an open door policy. I work closely with the NAACP and Mrs. Williams. We speak several times a week in regards to any issues. So we do have a culture. We are adapting a culture that we are transparent, and we are part of the community. Part of our community outreach has suffered the past 3 years when we went down to, our SROs went from 9 to 3. Our community policing went from 14 to 4. So we do have some real logistic issues to overcome probably within this year. Right now, we have 17 to 18 officers on training. We just hired 3. I have 3 more in the academy graduating in April. So you're going to see an increase of community policing officers. Some of our goals is to have more people out on the mountain bikes in South Norwalk, communicating throughout the whole city, East Norwalk, everywhere. So a lot of our community policing presence and our outreach has suffered, and I agree with you that we need to get out there, and that will be increasing in the next year.
Thank you. Is that all, Councilmember Ayers? I just want to make sure before I move on.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting
Councilmember Revelous.
Sorry, my phone.
It's okay.
So I just first wanted to say I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm gonna more so say that I'm actually kind of happy to use the few words that I'm gracious to hear coming back to me, which is the fact of the the tenor, the overall the tenor of the police department and how that's trying to be changed is definitely important, because you're the very first time I've heard like you are, the police are the people, people are the police, because there's a lot of feelings that, I had a police tell me once, you're trained that there's the citizens, the police, and the bad guys. And at some point, it just becomes the police and the bad guys. And somewhere you forget the citizens. So I appreciate hearing that. I really do. I also appreciate you taking the time to stress how community policing has been hurt. That's something I think it's a lot of times stated that is a missed opportunity with the way we engage with police, and how Councilwoman Ayers saying appearing not only as a badge and uniform, but a person, helps a lot in the conversations to happen well before stories on the news come out. You know what I mean? If we had just a different tenor in the community that at least shows and understands that you are part of the community. It's even greater when you come from the community to actually have conversations and communications and relationships with our youth and with our citizens, our constituents. So you would know the person themselves before even trying to come up to them in any type of manner that you would feel had to be of more of a bruteful force, because you know the person. You know what I mean? So I do just want to state that I appreciate hearing it, because at first I was just going to be like, I'm not saying anything because I've already said you need the community. I'm just being joking in the back of my head, but to hear it come out from the other end, I do appreciate, because it would be nice to be in a space where we just know that that won't happen in Norwalk. You know what I mean? Like, and that we take the true transparency. I would love to see you guys on bikes again and just being like out here. Like, that was actually really cool when you guys did that. I'm not gonna lie. So that's what I just wanted to say. I was gonna keep it to myself, but I'm just really, really appreciative of hearing it back and hopefully being executed truly with some spirit of intention behind it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Meek.
Yeah, thanks. This is an important conversation, and I think we've made a lot of progress here. I recall when the Ferguson incident happened, there was a lot of rhetoric like that this will happen in Norwalk. And today here we are talking about how to prevent things. And I think that's a good premise, to keep it fair to our law enforcement officers. The question I have, apart from what you're doing, and I talk to a lot of rank and file who they talk actively about how to diffuse a situation. How do we, outside of the police department, is there something we can do, in your opinion, to educate people to not resist arrest, to let them know they'll have their day in court, whether or not the police officer is right or wrong in the situation, and just to calm down and follow the process and work through it? Is there something more that we can do outside of MPD resources? Thanks.
I think a lot of the issues that are brought forth are caused by distrust, generational distrust, and things like that. So I think as we move on and the community sees and has more faith and trust in law enforcement, we could resolve many issues before they get worse. Every situation is different. And I think overall, sometimes the tenor of America at itself in vilifying law enforcement due to a few bad apples doesn't help. The Norwalk Police Department and the law enforcement in Connecticut is very progressive in its training. We have a lot of accredited agencies, not only on the state level, but in the national level. The training in Connecticut is there, and I think it's just regaining trust. I think that's the biggest obstacle.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? I see Councilmember Revelous, your hand is still raised, but I didn't know if that was from.
I just realized it still was. I'm
That's
so
okay. I just wanted to
sorry.
make sure I wasn't cutting you off. Are there any other Councilmember Ayers?
Yes, Chief, my little light bulb in my head just went off. When you talked about regaining trust in the community, when I was in, I don't know if it was 5th grade, middle school, somewhere around there, we had the DARE program. Officer Giles came to our school and did the DARE program. And what was so amazing about that program was, as a child who has a very different perspective of the world, we saw police in a way of trying to help us and connect us and protect us. Do you have in your current organization, or do you have any plans on reinstating a program like DARE, or a program like, I know my son goes to Tracy and the police come and they eat lunch with the kids and the fire people, and it's just really, really good. So it doesn't have to necessarily be DARE, but those type of community connections. Do you have any plans around that? Because I think that would really help with breaking generational distrust.
Can I just
with the
jump
police.
on the back of that too and add, because the bus stop, I swear, is the biggest missed opportunity when cops are standing with children, especially like elementary school children. I think that's the biggest missed opportunity of just a cop coming out of their car and actually conversing with those children and getting to know them. So I just wanted to throw that alley that with Councilwoman Ayers' question, because I just want to add that. I think bus stops are extremely big missed, and a lot of officers who could really be engaging with kids at that time stay in their car.
I agree. To Councilman Ayers' point, we do still have an active DARE program. It got suspended originally because of COVID. Then we went to a virtual program, and we were still teaching virtually. But right now, Officer Prada, Officer Chris Holmes, and Officer Cornel Abruzzini are our DARE instructors, and we have a very active DARE program right now. Those are three of our 6 SROs right now. So we do have a DARE program right now. Myself and Deputy Chief Blake and a lot of the community members and the SROs participated in the community luncheon at Tracy School. And on March 2nd, we're participating in Read Across America. Well, I've already committed to 3 schools on March 2nd to do readings, and there'll probably be more invites.
Well, Chief, because of who your wife is, you don't have no choice.
Well, I get a lot of invites. I'll be Madar Thomas, and I'm doing Tracy School, and I'm doing several schools. So yeah, I'll be doing a lot of schools. Like I think Deputy Chief Blake got also the invite. So we'll be there and active, and we work a lot with Tracy School. Those community luncheons, I think that we've already done 2 this year. And to Councilman Revolution's point, you're absolutely right with the school crossing guards in the morning and the afternoons. We've addressed that to have the officers get out of the cars and engage with the youth. It's a genuine opportunity for the officers, and just to say hi and good morning and things like that. But I agree on all points. But we do have an active DARE program, and one of our goals is to increase the SROs when we have more staffing this year, and hopefully increase it at the beginning of school next year. And with the continued support of the school resource officers through the larger city government and in cooperation with Norwalk Public Schools, it's a great arrangement we have right now.
Thank you so much. I also just wanted to throw out that you also do coffee with cops. And I think that's a great use of the community's time too. If anybody is able to join those, they are usually posted on the social media page for MPD. And I think that's a great opportunity to connect as well. But I love all the ideas around the youth, especially because I think that was something Officer Cornell had said to me when I first came on as a council member, because we were talking about SORO officers and how important the DARE program is, and getting forming those relationships with kids at a young age. So, you know, you have a connection with them as they get older and are, you know, adults in the community. So I think that's really important. I want to have lunch with the police. I don't think you guys do that at Marvin. How do we get that going? I'll shoot you an email. Don't worry.
It's usually arranged by one of the administrators and teachers in the building.
Oh, I am
They
gonna
put
get
out an
on
invite
that
and they arrange it.
tomorrow. Any other questions or comments? Chief Walsh, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to make this an important conversation for all the work that you and the police officers do to keep us all safe and to prevent something like this happening in our community. I know it is hard work every single day, and I know you are striving for your best every single day, and we appreciate that and see you. So thank you very much. And thank you for all the thoughtful comments and questions from the committee. I really appreciate it. I know these are not easy conversations often, but they are important conversations. And I appreciate everyone being respectful and coming with thoughtfulness. So thank you. With that, that is the end of our agenda. So I will call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chief
so much,
Walsh.
everyone. Have a great
Aye.
evening.
You
Good night,
too.
all.
Good night.